Today on More Than Kind, we're talking about how you can use emotional labor to connect with your customers and improve your bottom line. So what do we mean when we talk about emotional labor? Well, what we're talking about is the work of the heart, the human communication piece, the emotional connection piece. Now we know if we go to work and we come home at the end of the day and we're physically exhausted, we know we did a lot of good physical labor. If we come home at the end of the day and sometimes our brains are just fried, we know that we did a lot of mental labor today. In some jobs, we do a lot of physical labor combined with a lot of mental labor. But at the end of the day, you're exhausted either way. If you're doing emotional labor, it's the same thing. You come home at the end of the day and, for lack of a better term, you feel like your soul has been emptied out. And I mean that in a good way, not a bad way, but it just means that you've sort of emptied your cup out when it comes to emotional issues. And that's how you know you're doing great emotional work. That's why it can be so hard to find great nurses, because we expect great nurses to do all three of those things. They have to do physical labor, lifting, helping people move around, just the physical force of walking around every day. We expect them to do incredible mental work. Nurses are keeping track of many different patients, all of their medications, all of the side effects. They're dealing with all kinds of things throughout the day. A skill set. Can they draw blood? Do they know how to do certain things associated with their job? But then they also have to do a tremendous amount of emotional labor. So at the end of the day, they feel tired physically, they feel tired mentally, and they feel tired emotionally. But that emotional piece is why nursing is so hard, but it's also why you need to connect with your customers on that level more and more. It's not just because it's a good thing to do and it's, human nature to want to connect on a human level, but it's good business. I'll show you a couple studies. In 2012, Gartner for Marketing found that 36% of companies in the year 2012 competed primarily on customer service. So in 2012, 36% of companies reported that they competed primarily on customer service, meaning that was their number one differentiator, was that they give better customer service. And when I say customer service, you can think to yourself, emotional connection. That's what human beings think about when they say, did I get good service? What they mean is, was there some emotional labor involved? Yes, efficiency is important. Yes, the product being what was expected is important. But the emotional labor component is what we usually mean when we say we received good service. Now, 2012, 36% of businesses said that was their number one competitive advantage. In 2016, it went to 89%. So nearly 9 out of 10 businesses said, hey, where we make a difference, where we're going to win in business is on customer service, on the experience. And that's 2016. We're 2 years after that. It's probably in the mid-90s by now, because that's just the nature of the way the world is changing. Another survey, a progress report, Customer 2020, a progress report by the Walker Company. By 2020, customer experience will overtake price as the most important consumer differentiator. I'm going to say that again. By 2020, this study found that customer experience will overtake price as the most important consumer differentiator. That means that how I'm going to choose as a consumer what business to interact with, it's going to be the experience that I have. And of course, customer experience encompasses many, many, many things. The experience can be, was it quick and efficient? Did I get what I expected? All of those things matter. But experience is another word we can substitute for emotion. What are my emotions that I felt about that interaction? That's really where the rubber meets the road, as they say. Experience and emotion, same thing. We make memories and we make moments in our brains and in our hearts based on the emotions that we felt while we were going through something. So remember that concept as we talk about this and the 3 things you can do to provide more emotional labor in what you do. Just look at 2 companies real quick. Amazon first. When you think of Amazon, I'll just tell you, top of my head, what comes to mind is computer. And then for whatever reason, I think of Jeff Bezos and how he's ripped now. I think it's funny that Amazon's transition as a company sort of has accompanied Jeff Bezos and his physical appearance and sort of how he takes on the world. Started out as a mild-mannered, computer guy that wanted to sell books, and now he's Robo Jeff out there dominating the world. So I think that's what I think of when I think of Amazon. You, of course, have your own things that you think about when you think about Amazon, but I think clean, quick, efficient, cold. I don't get warm fuzzies when I think about Amazon, even if there's a little smiley face at the bottom of their logo. I'm happy that I got my stuff efficiently, but that's the emotions that I feel there. Take a company like Zappos, and you're talking about an entirely different experience. Zappos, built on service, it's built right into everything they do, and everything they do is built on building a human connection, even though we're working through the computer or through the phone. They will write you a handwritten note. They will stay on the phone with you for hours and hours and hours. They're so good, it's been a bit of a cliche now in my line of work in customer experience training to talk about Zappos because they've done it so well. Here's the challenge for you. They've done it so well. So are you going to beat Amazon on efficiency? Well, God bless you. I hope you can. Going to be very difficult because they got a big head start on you. Can you beat Zappos in experience? Yes, you can. And they know that. So that's why they're working so hard to make sure you can't beat them. But they've raised the expectation on experience. So now your customers expect that no matter what you do, whether it's healthcare, retail, in a restaurant, mom and pop kind of business, an online business, whatever it may be that you do, companies like Zappos and others are raising that experience bar, so you better invest in that emotional labor because that's how you're going to make a difference. At Amazon, there's no time for emotion. We have to deliver the products right away. That's what they do. At Zappos, dominating the world takes a back seat to this one-on-one customer interaction. So that emotional labor, it takes time, it takes investment, but it's the way you can compete. You're not going to compete with Amazon necessarily, not today, not right away. Can you compete with other companies in your sector or just out in the world with emotional labor? Yes. Feelings are free. That's important to remember, is that building a customer experience on emotions, and I say it's free, but it's mostly free. You do have to invest in that emotional labor piece. You can't just say, okay, well, I'm going to compete on customer service now, as 89% of those companies said. A lot of times where they're falling short is they think, I'm going to compete on customer service, and then they think, well, feelings are free. I can just smile at everybody when they come in, and that's going to make a difference in my business. Guess what? Everybody's smiling at everybody when they come in. You walk into Moe's, and they say, welcome to Moe's. Whether or not that feels sincere anymore is up for debate, because if everyone's doing that, well, now the bar's been raised to there. Now you've got to go over and above it. So feelings are mostly free, but you do have to invest. I'll give you an example. When I was in high school, there was a gentleman who was going to open an ice cream shop, very much in line with the Cold Stone Creamery concept. Now, Cold Stone Creamery, well, this gentleman would like me to tell you that he had the idea first, and I don't know that he did, but it predates any Cold Stone Creamery I've ever seen. But his idea was based around two things: the frozen or chilled pallet where you did the ice cream and then put it in. So that was his business model differentiator. And then his emotional differentiator was he wanted to have singing ice cream people, gelatiers. I don't know what you call an ice cream guy, but somebody that does ice cream. He wanted to have them singing. And some of my buddies and I were known in the community as being singers and having enthusiasm, and he thought we'd be great to work at his ice cream shop. And we thought so too. We thought it sounded great. And then we said, how much does it pay? And he said, well, it pays minimum wage. Well, I currently at the time had a minimum wage job at a snack bar at a pool. I have to tell you, my minimum wage job at the snack bar at the pool was much more appealing to me than singing in front of 2 or 3 people while I made their ice cream and hoping I get some tips. I'd rather be at the pool. In the summer, it was just a better place for me to be, and he didn't understand that. When I explained, well, for minimum wage, I've already got a minimum wage job, it did not occur to him that you have to invest in people that are good at providing that emotional labor. And I don't know if this is why, but it's probably one of the factors why the business didn't last the summer. It opened and it closed very shortly thereafter because I went in once and they had just people that were just saying, hi, what do you want? Butter brickle, butter pecan. Yeah. Do people make Butterbrickle anymore? But they would just make your ice cream, give it to you, and off they went, because he wasn't willing to invest in that emotional labor. It just makes me think of Subway, one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing fast food franchise in the United States, certainly over the last 20 years. And for a long time, they had a campaign, their aprons, they may even still say it said sandwich artist across the front. A sandwich artist is not something you really make the mental connection with, that there's a piece of art being created while I make my sandwich. But what they're speaking to is experience. They kind of get it, where my ice cream friend did not really get it. That interaction over whether or not you want the Southwest Chipotle sauce or light mayo or whatever you might get on there, that interaction is actually part of the gimmick. You could go, there's not a lot of drive-through Subways that I'm aware of. That interaction across the glass is really part of this Subway experience that, in my opinion, keeps them growing as one of the fastest growing fast food experiences in the country. So remember that. You've got to invest in that. So 3 things I promised you today, 3 tips to really elevate the emotional labor involved in your work. Number 1, think about feelings. Now that's a funny thing to say, think about your feelings. We generally don't put those 2 things together, thinking and feeling. We sort of put them in different parts of our brain. But think about your feelings. Think about the feelings of your customers as they walk in the door. Take 5 minutes today, take an hour, take a day, get your whole team together and really talk about that idea of what does it feel like to walk in the front door? Or what does it feel like to log on to whatever business you've got going on? How your customer feels is actually the difference in whether or not your business thrives or whether it kind of wilts on the vine. You've got to invest some time thinking about their feelings. Number 2 is hire for emotional labor. Learn the lesson of Ice Cream Man back in Yorktown, Virginia, who could have and should have hired for emotional labor and instead just kind of went with the minimum wage person, and it didn't work out well. And number 3 is keep score. So I'll talk about that one more in a minute. Let's go through each of those things just in a little more depth. Seth Godin wrote a great book called Linchpin. Highly recommend it. It's about this concept, very much of it is about this concept of emotional labor. And it's written from the perspective of why you at work should give more of yourself emotionally. It's a great read. It's called Linchpin. If you go to my website, morethankind.com, you will see I'll put it on the front page for the next week or so, a book recommendation with a link to Amazon because they're ruthlessly efficient and I don't make any money from that, but I'll give you an Amazon link. You can buy that book. Linchpin. Phenomenally great book. Here's a Seth Godin quote that sort of ties into this. Emotional labor is available to all of us, but is rarely exploited as a competitive advantage. Let me say that again. Emotional labor is available to all of us, but it is rarely exploited as a competitive advantage. Seth Godin said that, and he's right. Literally every business has humans involved. No matter what you do, there's a human experience. If we're conducting commerce, it's with human beings. I was going to say generally speaking, but specifically speaking, we're doing business with human beings. So everyone has the ability to tap into the reservoir of our hearts that we carry around with us every day. Very few do it. Very many businesses, as I showed you in 2016, 89% are saying this is how we compete. We compete on the customer experience, but how many people are really digging in and taking that competitive advantage that they could pull out? Well, let's let it be you today. Take some time and think about feelings. That's tip number 1. Tip number 2, hire for emotional labor. I know that you're thinking to yourself, Eric, we're at full employment. I can't even get people to answer the phone anymore when I'm trying to offer them a really good job. I can't even get them to call me back because everybody's got a job that wants a job. Everybody's engaged in something else, and I've got to compete on that. Well, 2 things. I'm so sorry, but that's the nature of business. You've got to do it, but you've also got to reach out on that emotional component. And I will tell you, the second thing is that will be a competitive advantage for you too in hiring. If you let people know, I'm looking for people who can give of themselves emotionally as well as productively. And in terms of the bottom line on the spreadsheet, I want a part of who you are as well to come along. That's a competitive hiring advantage as well, because if somebody says, well, that's stupid, I don't want that, guess what? You didn't want them anyway, because they're not going to fit into your culture of providing emotional labor. If they do feel that way, they're going to say, well, maybe I can get that over at that new company where I don't have it where I am now. So that's important. It doesn't mean you can hire someone who's not good at their jobs. We have to look at skill set. You have to. All I'm saying is you've got to incorporate this other piece. You know, Google, Warby Parker, a lot of these online companies, they have what they call the layover test, which is, it's generally speaking a tiebreaker. If we got two people with equal skill sets, who would I feel most comfortable with on a 6-hour layover at the airport? It's not, I wouldn't put it at my top of my list of interview questions, but it's an important one. And all it really means is, can I relate to this person as an individual? I'll warn you that question says something about you as much as it says about them, so you better be in touch with how you feel about yourself and what sort of person you would hire to interact with. There's a real skill to that. But the emotional labor is something you should be hiring for. That was our number 2. And number 3 is keep score, and this honestly is the hardest one. You've got to keep score, and so much of the work I do with customers and my clients all over the country is talking about not only how do you develop the culture, how do you set the standards of behavior and interaction? Yes, we always make eye contact and smile. When they walk in the door, we say, welcome to Moe's. I haven't worked with Moe's, but that's what some of the people do. They have a little slogan or a little something they say, whatever that is. The ones that succeed are the ones that keep score. They set the standard, they set the emotional labor standard, and then they keep score. And it's very difficult because we're very good at keeping score in business because it generally comes down to the numbers. Are we in the red or are we in the black in terms of profitability? I guess I should have said red and black. Are we in the red or in the black in terms of profitability? That's usually the bottom line we look at. But you've got to keep score on the emotional labor too. Are we making connections with our customers? Are we feeling at the end of the day like we poured it all out today? Aren't we we're not just physically tired, we're not just mentally tired, but we're also emotionally tired because we poured it out today. And there's lots of different ways you can do that, but really it's just set the standard and then observe. You have to see it happening. You have to talk to your customers and say, what did you feel? That's not a question that customers get asked often enough. So you've got to keep score. So those are our 3 things. Think about feelings. Hire for emotional laborers. Find those sandwich artists in whatever it is that you do. And then keep score. Those 3 things, if you can do those 3 things relative to emotional labor, your business will improve and even thrive.